You're listening to China Manufacturing Decoded from the Sofeast Group. Hi, welcome back to the podcast. Adrian hosting, Renaud joins me. Hello, Renaud.
Hey, hi Adrian. Hi everybody. So, what are we talking about today?
Today, Renaud, we're going to lift the lid on hidden commissions in China sourcing. So hopefully we'll be able to go through how it works, how to spot it, and how to move to a model that protects your margins. Because if there are some hidden commissions and kickbacks going on, this could actually be eroding your margin, kind of in a sneaky way that you're not too sure about. So I guess the message at the top of the show for listeners is this could be happening to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is not just about margin, as we'll discuss. Different companies will focus on different things. For some companies, the worst is to buy something that's 10% or 20% or more, too expensive. But for some others, it's the other, let's say the byproducts of that model that would be more painful. But anyway, so yeah, how do you want to start this?
Let's look at the context more widely to start, right? So you've got an overseas buyer. They want to buy stuff from China. They're not buying it independently by going directly to a factory. In this case, they're going to be using an agent or a trading company, right? So this is the whole point that you're talking about. These people that are being used, let's say they are perhaps in some cases a kind of middleman. They're taking a commission. They're probably being paid by the buyer, but they could also be being paid by the factory. And ultimately, what you're saying is that could increase the cost for buyers even further.
Yes, so there's many cases, and I should be careful not to overgeneralize, right? But yeah, the first thing is, what does agent mean? A lot of buyers have told me, well, yes, I will work with an agent. And then when I press a little bit, like, what do you mean by agent? Do you buy from them? Oh, yes. So where's the factory? Oh, we're not sure. Maybe they own the factory. Maybe we're not really sure. Okay. That's a trading company that acts as a middleman and hides the identity of the manufacturer. Okay. Now, the question is, what value do they bring in the transaction? If they only play, what's the word, matchmaker, and they say, oh, okay, you're looking for these kind of things that are, oh, let me search. Oh, how about this? Oh, yeah, okay, that's what I need. Okay. And that's the price and the MOQ that are, okay. Help me get the right packaging. Okay, okay, all approved. Here's the PO. Well, the first time you buy, there's some value, right? Spend time sourcing the sample on the manufacturer, hopefully doing some proper due diligence, qualifications, doing a lot of the communication, translation, etc. Right. The first time they've done a lot of work, but then and they're taking a risk, right? Because they're not getting paid upfront. They are counting on repeat business. Okay. Now, if there's only one order and then nothing happens after that, they probably did not really make money. So they're taking a risk. If the buyer starts to buy a lot of that product and keeps buying through them, well, then, they're doing great business. Okay. And at one point, the buyer is going to think, well, wait a minute. Yeah, they did some work at the beginning, but after that, they're just cruising, nothing really happening. How much of the price is going through to their company, right? And what is it exactly is it costing them? Yeah, some transactions, some whatever bank wires, etc. Some people to pay to do maybe some translation and things like that, but or maybe not even that, right? So how much money are they making? And that's just money poured down the drain basically for them, right? So at one point they they wise up and they say, well, wait a minute, they're not really providing any value. I'm just going to try to go around them. If they could find the factory, I can find it too. And then
Mm.
in most cases, they end up finding if they end up finding the factory, well, and they say, well, yeah, we're the buyer that buy this, and the factory is elated, like, oh, great, we can get rid of the trader. Well, I have a direct customer now. I have more control. The trader cannot play games. I can get paid directly by the customer, and it will be more stable, typically more stable.
Yeah.
And so they're saying, well, maybe the trader was making 15%, maybe 20%, who knows? Well, they come direct to me. I need to give them a lower price, right? Maybe let's say I increase my price by 10%, right? And then it's up to the buyer to say, well, wait a minute, try to negotiate something. But usually
Mm.
they will make a bit more money because traders need to negotiate hard to, um, yeah, to enlarge their margin, right?
Mm.
Uh, so
Okay.
And that's often the way it works in that case. However, I have to say it's not the case for all trading companies. So the model of the trader that doesn't say who the factory is, that can work, I don't know, in like simple garments. That can work in salt and pepper sets, right? In simple furniture, right? Because the buyer doesn't really need to engage the factory. There's not much difficulty in developing the process to make the products, in setting up all the measurement and testing processes, fixing issues, etc. No, not really. And some buyers really don't even want to know. Yeah, I don't care. I buy from this company. They speak my language. It's easy. I don't want to know. I don't want to manage the production side, right? However, for products that are more complicated, products that are highly regulated, and so on, that model does not work. Right? It
Mm.
doesn't work. If you buy medical devices and yeah, it's regulated, let's say in the EU or the US, or it just doesn't work, right? The buyer really needs to have all the information. And there's a lot of products like automotive parts. Like this is not gonna work, right? So sometimes there is a trading company in these cases, but they function very differently. They will usually be relatively transparent. The buyer typically will be in contact with the manufacturer and go to the factory and so on. And basically, the trading company will act as the sales office of the factory. Let's say it this way. Right? So, buyer goes there. The buyer can ask. Typically, the buyers, engineers, purchasers, whatever, ask about anything related to the process, the materials, the production planning, things like that.
Mm.
However, they don't engage the factory for business discussions. Whenever it goes to business, factory people will say, "Oh, you should talk with ABC Trading. This is not something we manage here." And so the trading company is the point of contact for anything that involves money, and the payments go to them, and maybe contractual requirements and things like that. The contracts, okay, but sometimes the factory themselves has to, they have to sign the contract also. Maybe some lawyers prepare contracts with three parties,
Mm.
right? Buyer, the trader, and the manufacturer. That can work. That can work. I've seen that work reasonably well. And in some cases, trading companies do provide value, right? Maybe they finance, right? They pay the manufacturer, they deliver things to the customer, and they get paid after a while, right? So in some cases, they do provide some value. Maybe they provide, I don't know, design services, some specific competencies. It could be a lot of things. Could be a lot of things. Sometimes they invest in developing the product and even paying for the marketing cost and sometimes advertising campaigns and things like that, right? And then the buyer, typically big retail, a big box chain, will be happy. Okay, this is a full package I'm getting, right? If they engage only the manufacturer, maybe they will not be so happy. Well, I buy this product, but that's it, right? Now they're paying a bit more, yeah, but they're also getting a full package, marketing support and things like that, and they're
Mm.
happy, and everybody's happy because it means the volumes are higher, right? So the key question really is, number one, does the intermediary provide value that makes sense, over time, or just at the beginning? The second one is really about transparency, right, and visibility into the supply chain. And in most
Mm.
cases, for our customers, like they don't want to have someone in the middle that hides things, and we actually help them set up supply chains that provide the visibility they need, because from
Mm.
visibility comes control, right? So we are very, very opinionated on that. However, just in case some people listen to me and say, well, I'm kind of an intermediary also, and I think I'm really doing a good job, and I have um, I have I deserve, to be in the supply chain, and I'm creating the value, and I'm capturing some value, but it's very, very reasonable based, when compared with the value I help create. All
Mm.
right, I agree. I agree. There's some of that also. It exists, right? It exists.
Mm.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's good to remind people of kind of our tagline, right? Which is about giving everyone visibility. So yeah, that's an important point there.
Yeah. Transparency and control in the supply chain, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
So if we look at the types of commissions or kickbacks that might be used, this perhaps helps people understand what agents or trading companies could
Mm.
be doing. So there's a few different ways that they may try to, you know, get some extra cash in for themselves, basically, right?
Right. Well, yeah, there's the agents and the traders, right? And we need, let's say, purchasing agents. If Now there's agents that only get paid by the manufacturer, and that will actually usually have a name card, etc. So they are the sales agents of the manufacturers, right? So
Yeah.
they're just basically sort of contract employees, if you want, or whatever. I mean, they are on the supplier side. That doesn't really matter. Here, I'm talking more about the purchaser side agents that help the the buyer side. Okay,
Hmm.
typically, let's say the importer. Keep it simple. So the importer is looking for something. They need some help on the ground. They need to make things happen and so on. So they find an agent, and yeah, typically they will pay something to the agent. Okay, because if they pay nothing, usually they know, like, okay, there's a catch here somewhere. It's going to bring me to her cousin's or her brother-in-law's factory and so on. But like, she's not going to bring me to a good factory. All right. So to make it worth the agent's time, yeah, okay, let's pay them something. Yeah, usually a few percent, anywhere from, I don't know, 3 to maybe 12%, depending on the value of the goods, the expected amount of business, and so on. And they want to show the agent typically that there's going to be some business, some repeat business. Like, it's really in your interest to do a very good job at the beginning and to keep this business on track, because you will be happy in the long run, and we will be happy in the long run. So in their mind, it's kind of a way to align the incentives. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's very, very tempting for them to also get a margin from the supplier side, because factories are very used to paying agents, the buyer's agents, but still paying them something. Okay. And for the factory, it also means that agent will not be likely to try to move to another factory. Okay, so the agent now has two bosses because they get paid from both sides, and sometimes they get paid 2 times more from the factory side than from the buyer side. Okay,
Mhm.
so and it can be justified in many ways. Like, oh, we're doing some functions, that the supplier would typically do. Oh, we send our inspector, so they should do the inspections and blah blah blah. But we're doing it, so kind of we're doing some functions that they should perform. So there is value in that, and they pay us, they pay something to us, right? But however you justify it, if you don't tell the buyer, it's not ethical, right? And again, just to stress how common it is, it's from the very nice English speaking lady that you will meet maybe when walking on the Canton Fair and blah blah blah. Who will be lovely and give you some tips and that are like be so nice and considerate, blah blah blah.
Mm.
And then one day you might notice, oh, I can't believe she was making money all along. Like I trusted her so much. Some buyers told me that, like they couldn't believe it. And it goes all the way to the biggest trading companies in the world. Okay, the biggest ones in Hong Kong and so on. It's just impossible for them when they get squeezed by their buyers. They just need to get the money somewhere. And again, it's just so easy to push a factory to give them some uh, a commission, especially on new products that are getting requoted or something like that. And okay, just insert a couple of percent to start with, and you know raise the price a little bit, and then up maybe at one point it's 5%, and again depending on the volume, more or less money, right? So that's the agents. That's how they enlarge their money. The traders.
Mm.
So again, the key is the alignment of incentives, right? And again, the buyer might think, well, I'll buy from you, so if you do a good job, I keep buying from you, then you make money, right? But the trader is thinking, hey, if I can make a solid margin, this year and next year, okay, I'm buying a couple of apartments, da 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 da. Then like I'm I'm set for life. I don't care, right? Versus, well, over the next 5 to 10 years, let's hope that the business goes well, right? In China, a lot of companies, a lot of people don't think in the long term about their business and their customers, right? Especially if you're not in their circle, right? You're not from their hometown. China is very much a culture where you respect the people from your hometown, and you have a circle of people around you. Like, this is my strong network, and I'm going to be in with them for the long haul. I need to make sure I keep these relationships and so on. And this is very seen as very valuable. Okay.
Mm.
But then anybody outside of the circle, well, it's just business. Now they will talk, blah, 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 win, 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 and partner, and blah, 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 blah. But to them, yeah, it's just business. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I need to explain it to them. Now, if it's good business with everything looking good, yeah, they will treat it like good business that, can last for a long time and so on. Right. But there's limitations to that. Okay, so the alignment of incentives, when one one party is thinking more long term than the other, that can be an issue. So the trader, some of them, what they do is they will bring production to a relatively small factory, typically with nobody speaking English, because
Mm.
they also want to make sure the buyer cannot easily jump over them, right? So nobody can speak English, relatively small factory. I get some good terms, some great pricing, and I will be doing the management of the customer and management of the supplier, and that I will try to set a quality standard. I will try to keep inspecting things. I will need to do everything basically. And yeah, that's worth 25%, margin. Okay. versus going to a well-established factory that will have higher prices, et cetera, et cetera. And then once the customer knows about them, maybe visits them, they were like, "Oh, great! I can," they have a bunch of people who can speak English. It's very reassuring. I can work with them directly. The trading company is not bringing any value, right? So they make sure that they cannot be easily kicked out. And yeah, at the same time, they can make more margin because this small factory is, how to say, uh, offers great pricing, but it's just a workshop. They don't really have any of the support services, the systems, the processes, the tools, and everything that you would expect from a highly reliable, established manufacturer, right? So
Mm,
it's just so tempting that we keep seeing this pattern. Now, it's not always the case, not always, but when there's a wide range of factories, that can be picked, very often that's what trading companies tend to pick, right? They go in that
mm,
direction.
mm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's often the
The
situation.
locking you into using a factory that doesn't speak English, for example,
Mhm.
that's kind of sneaky because, of course, how can you go and deal with them? You're hooked into using them. So I can understand that. Yeah. Okay. If we start to come towards the end now, and let's look at some of the red flags that we can look for in order to detect that we might be a victim of, people putting some kind of hidden commission on what we're paying.
Well, first, are you involved in all the pricing negotiation? Do you talk about pricing yourself, or do you rely on the agent to do it,
Mm,
right? If you rely on the agent to do it, so you are abdicating any form of control here. But if you're always involved and so on, and the agent's kind of on the side and so on, it's usually a little bit less risky, right? The manufacturer needs to see who is the decision maker, right? If you are involved in decision making, Mhm. the manufacturer will look to you for pricing confirmations, etc., less to the agent. The agent will be providing services, supporting you, but would not be pulling the strings. Okay. When it comes to an agent, I guess that's the most important. Also, yeah, how do they get paid? Like, do they get paid by the hour? A bit more like an engineering firm, for example, or do they get paid a percentage? You know, we never get paid a percentage. We have never get paid a percentage just because it looks too much like, that business model of getting a percentage on the order from both sides, which is very dirty. And it's so common that people will assume you're getting a percentage probably from both sides if you get a percentage. So payment of a percentage for the commission, to me, is already kind of a red flag. Now, I'm not saying every agent that gets paid X percent as commission is is playing this kind of game, but they're already in the situation of thinking that way, and I think that's not very good. Okay. Another one is when you say, "Well, we have a problem with this supplier," or "We need to put them in competition. We need to see if there's better pricing." Is the agent motivated and does the work and make things happen? Do they kind of, treat it as a lower priority, tell you why there are problems, da 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 da, why it's risky to change and things like that? If they say that, basically they are happy working with that factory. It's kind of comfortable, probably, right?
mm,
And maybe they're getting paid more from the factory side than they are from your side. Okay, so this is the kind of things that you should know. Obviously, if the agent is not paid anything, basically he's the supplier's rep. Okay, I think this one is pretty easy to to detect. Okay, and then with trading companies, well, basically, have they shown you information about the factory? Have they suggested you should come and visit? Right? Have they been open? Have they sent you compliance documents, etc., with the factory name. Have they been there, done, I don't know, WeChat, video call, or something like that to show you, right? Have they been involving you in seeing what the factory is like? If not, well, you can simply ask, hey, whatever, oh, we have an investor or something like that who is requesting to do a bit of due diligence on the factory, blah, 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 because this is one of our core products and it's very important. Or maybe it's a customer is asking for this information. And then see what you get back. If they don't tell you anything, ouch. Now, if that was the deal from the beginning, can you complain? Well, maybe you should look at yourself in the mirror, right? You should have specified what your requirements were from the beginning. Okay. So that's why I don't really want to cast the blame on people. At least half the issues come from the buyer side. It's kind of a general rule. So if you put yourself in a wrong situation, that's the kind of things that will happen, right?
That's a good point.
That's
so. How do we move to kind of a safer model then? What should we be insisting on as buyers?
Well, it should be from the beginning. So if you have an existing, supplier relationship and so on that's stuck in these kind of situations, it can be pretty difficult. You might have to transfer manufacturing completely out of that supply chain into a new supply chain that is clean without an agent or anything. Or if you fire your agent, how are they going to keep getting, paid by the supplier? They might actually find a way to keep getting paid by the manufacturer. Now, if you tell your manufacturer very clearly, hey, this is no longer our agent, blah, 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 usually they will no longer get the commission. But will the manufacturer tell you that they were paying them, whatever, 8%? Then that means you can get an immediate cut of the price, in the order of 8%. The manufacturer might think twice before disclosing anything here, right? So the incentive of the manufacturer is not to tell you that the agent is playing this game. That's why it's so tricky, so tricky. But yeah, you might have to completely get out of that supply chain and get build your castle on firm ground, right? With a manufacturer you can visit and so on, right? And if your business allows, yeah, you should work with a service company that gets paid by the hours, or you have to find a manufacturer that themselves have all the the support services and the good communication and so on and so forth to work with you. Like there's a lot of options in most product categories. Okay, but if you always want to pay zero for sourcing, you don't want to pay anybody, or at least not upfront. You want to see things moving before you pay anything, and you always want to go to the cheapest factories and have the best deal. Then, go ahead and work with various kinds of agents and try to control the situation, and maybe it will work well for you, right? Again, this comes from the buyer. At the end, it's really about what they can accept and what they're looking for.
Yeah. Okay. And so to recap then, what do you think the listener should do to check on what they're currently buying from China? What's the takeaway that they can immediately do following this episode?
Well, do you know the people who are working for you? Do you know if they are actually the staff of the manufacturing companies? Do you know the names and everything? Have you visited the factories that makes your products? What do you know exactly about your supply chain, right? Do you actually understand how things flow? Very often it's this manufacturer and I don't know, they make plastic parts. Oh, okay. So what is it? Plastic injection molding? Okay. And is it in their own factory? I guess so. And do they make the tooling by themselves? Oh, wow. I guess so. Okay, well, you know what? Do some research, talk to them, get into a live WeChat call or something like that with
Mm,
video, see what they show you, see where they're at, try to understand things with your own eyes. Okay. Don't always assume that things will be going great with people who might have another agenda, basically.
mm. And I guess if you're not, if you don't know which factory is actually producing your products, I mean,
Mm,
that's up to you as a business. If you're comfortable with that, then that's fine. But if your agent or trading company is not telling you this, which they may well not want to, there for
mm,
obvious reasons, then you know you're kind of building foundations on sand, aren't you? This is something that potentially you might want to look at because there's a lot of potential
right.
problems that you can have if you don't have control over where your manufacturing is going on, not least of all
Mm,
your IP, for example. But I mean, that's just one of the potential problems. So this research that you do, this
yeah.
could throw up quite a lot of, I mean, everything might be fine, or there might be some worrying occurrences that come from it.
Mhm.
Ultimately, you might need to rip up what you're doing and go out sourcing and find the right partners that aren't going to be pulling any funny business, and where your manufacturing is kind of transparent and secure. Of course, we hope that doesn't happen to you, but it can happen, can't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's a risk if you haven't kept your eyes open
Mm.
when setting up a supply chain. You might have, all kinds of issues. Yeah.
Right, there you go. So time to health check your sourcing and your partners as we go into the end of the year. Probably a good time to do it and reset for 2026 if you need to. So that's the lowdown on sort of hidden commissions and kickbacks. What are they? Why could it be happening? Who's doing it and why? And what could you do to be safer? So thanks, Renaud,
Hey, thanks everyone.
and thank you to the listeners. Back next week as normal. Thanks again for listening to this podcast brought to you by the Sofeast Group. We're on a mission to provide you with everything you need to manufacture effectively in Asia, including inspections, auditing, new product development support, contract manufacturing, 3PL warehousing and fulfillment, and much, much more across Asia's key manufacturing areas. Visit us at sofeast.com, that's SOFEAST.com, to learn more and get help. If you've enjoyed the podcast today, please do rate, review and share because it will really help others discover us too.